There's a certain kind of silence that comes over a man when he feels himself slipping. It's not loud, not like pain or panic. It's more like a quiet dulling, a softness in the strength he used to take for granted. I remember a man named Bill, steelworker for over 30 years, hands like tree bark, the kind of man who once carried refrigerators up flights of stairs without asking for help. He sat across from me one afternoon, a little hunched eyes tired, and he said, "Doc, I don't know. I'm just not me anymore." He hadn't had a heart attack, no cancer, just something missing. His body, his energy, even his presence fading. He thought it was just age. But age, my friend, is not the villain we've made it out to be. Sometimes it's not the years, it's the fuel. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. I've walked beside thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, fathers, soldiers, teachers, factory men. They come to me not because they're broken, but because something inside whispers that there's still more life to live, if only they could find the strength to claim it. And more often than not, the first step back isn't some new pill, it's a plate. If this message speaks to you, type 1. If you're unsure, type 0. Either way, thank you for listening. Now let me tell you something I've learned the hard way through patience and through my own aging body. There are foods that steal your strength. Not all at once. They do it slowly, quietly. A bite here, a breakfast there. Until one day, the man you used to be feels like a shadow. I think back to George, a retired firefighter, 67 years old, thick arms, quiet voice. He told me he was tired all the time, blood pressure up, libido down. "I guess this is just what getting old feels like," he said. I didn't agree. We walked through his habits, and right there in his routine, morning bacon deli sandwiches, hot dogs at the ball game, I saw it. Processed meats. Now I know what you're thinking. Bacon's not the devil. And in moderation, sure, maybe it's harmless. But the kind of moderation most men practice, that's not what's happening. These meats, cured, smoked, packaged, are packed with sodium nitrates, chemical preservatives, and saturated fats. They look like comfort, but they choke off your blood flow. Inside your body, nitrates break down into compounds called nitrosamines, and those have been linked to prostate cancer and cardiovascular disease. The sodium spikes your blood pressure. The fats interfere with nitric oxide, the very molecule responsible for relaxing your arteries and letting blood flow where it needs to go. Yes, including there. George made one change. He swapped the sausage for grilled wild salmon, replaced his deli meats with home-cooked chicken breast. 3 weeks later, he said, "My wife told me I'm back." That's the kind of medicine that doesn't come in a bottle. If you're still eating sausage every morning or loading up on processed meats, try stepping away for a while. Watch how your sleep, your focus, even your blood pressure responds. You don't have to declare it to anyone. Just observe, because every change, even the quiet ones, tells a story. And while George made that shift, another man, Carl, taught me something just as important. Carl was a gentle soul, 72, widowed retired teacher, never smoked, walked daily. But something wasn't right. He told me his brain felt foggy, energy low, confidence gone. He was doing everything he thought was right. But when we looked closer at his diet, there it was. Toast in the morning, white rice at lunch, cookies at night. Now here's what most men don't know. Refined carbs, white bread pastries, crackers act a lot like sugar once inside your body. They spike insulin, they trigger inflammation, they send your testosterone into a quiet freefall. The science is clear on this. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that diets high in refined carbohydrates are associated with lower testosterone levels in older men. And lower testosterone isn't just about bedroom performance. It affects your mood, your sleep, your muscle mass, even your memory. Carl made a few gentle changes. He replaced his toast with steel-cut oats, reached for Ezekiel bread instead of crackers, swapped cookies for a handful of almonds or berries. 3 weeks later, he came back and said, "Doc, I feel like my brain turned back on." It wasn't magic. It was just food, real food, fuel that worked with his body, not against it. If you're finding this helpful, or you're just starting to think differently about your health after 60, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way, you won't miss future insights made just for men like you. Now I want to talk about something that's been quietly hurting a lot of men living alone or simply too tired to cook. Frozen dinners, canned soups, microwavable meals. Convenient, yes, but often loaded with more sodium than your body can safely handle. I had a patient, Alan, 69, recently retired, living alone, told me half-joking, "Doc, my microwave's my best friend." But behind the laugh was a man who couldn't sleep, whose ankles were swelling, whose blood pressure meds weren't working like they used to. You see those frozen meals that say low-fat or heart-healthy? They can contain over 1,500 milligrams of sodium per serving. That's your entire daily limit, sometimes twice over. Too much sodium raises blood pressure. It stiffens your arteries. And yes, it interferes with your erections because blood can't go where it's supposed to if your vessels are like old copper pipes. I asked Alan to try something simple, one home-cooked meal a day, lean protein, some greens, a little brown rice, seasoned gently, not with table salt, but with sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. Why? Because those natural salts in moderation contain trace minerals like magnesium and potassium that help your blood vessels relax and function more smoothly. Not a miracle, but a meaningful shift. A week later, Alan told me his rings fit better, his legs felt lighter, and his words, "I'm sleeping straight through for the first time in months." Sometimes the difference between feeling like yourself and feeling like a stranger is just what's on your plate. He wasn't the only one. There was another man, Robert, 66, widowed, kind eyes. He told me, "Doc, I'm trying," and I believed him. His fridge was stocked with low-fat soups, frozen entrees with healthy-sounding names, and a pantry full of cans that claimed to care for his heart. But his blood pressure was creeping up. His ankles were swollen. And more than once he said he'd wake up gasping, not from nightmares, but from the weight of fluid building up inside him. When we laid it all out, it wasn't just his grief that was slowing him down. It was salt. Most men think salt is just what comes out of a shaker, but the real danger is the kind you don't see: the sodium buried deep in frozen dinners, soups, sauces. One bite at a time, it overwhelms your kidneys, stiffens your arteries, and forces your heart to work harder than it should. I asked Robert to do something small. Cook one real meal a day, just one, no cans, no boxes, real ingredients. Use a pinch of sea salt or pink Himalayan, not to flavor the whole dish, but to season with intention. He looked at me like I'd asked him to climb Everest, but he tried. The next week he walked in smiling, his rings fit again, he was breathing easier, and as he said it, I feel lighter. It wasn't just the food, it was the feeling of taking care of himself again. That's something most men don't talk about, what it feels like to take your health into your own hands. Quiet pride, not in what you've done, but in how you feel waking up. Now I want to talk about a food we were all raised to trust. Milk, cheese, yogurt, the staples of strong bones and good health. But for many men over 60, dairy, especially the kind sold in most supermarkets, is no longer your friend. Let me explain. There's a man I'll never forget. Richard, 74, a retired teacher, a grandfather of 5, healthy labs, good cholesterol, no diabetes. But he looked at me, voice low, and said, "Doc, I just don't feel like a man anymore." He didn't mean muscle or power, he meant spark. That deep inner sense of being himself. We looked through his lifestyle. No drinking, no smoking. He even walked daily. But every morning cereal with milk, every night ice cream, cheese yogurt creamer throughout the day. These habits sound harmless, but most dairy today is no longer the milk of our childhood. Many conventional dairy products are made with milk from cows injected with synthetic hormones, especially RBGH, which boost milk production. These hormones don't just vanish when the milk is processed. They stay. And once inside you, they mimic estrogen. They disrupt your already delicate testosterone balance. And they contribute to things like prostate swelling, water retention, and low libido. Studies from the National Institutes of Health and Harvard School of Public Health have explored how hormone-treated dairy may contribute to hormonal disruption and inflammatory responses, especially in older adults. So what did Richard do? He swapped his conventional dairy for organic hormone-free Greek yogurt, and instead of milk, he tried almond and oat milk unsweetened. Within weeks, the puffiness around his eyes softened. His sleep improved, and in his words, I didn't realize how numb I felt until I started waking up again. That's a sentence I think about often, because numbness isn't just physical, it's emotional. It creeps in when our bodies stop responding, when food dulls our fire, when routines turn into quiet resignation. And yet, that numbness can be reversed, not with loud changes, but with quiet ones. So if you're still starting every day with a bowl of cereal and hormone-injected milk, try switching. Try organic yogurt. Try almond milk in your coffee. Observe quietly. Notice what changes. Because sometimes your body knows long before your mind catches up. Now all this talk of what not to eat, of what to remove, it can start to feel heavy. But there's another side to this story. You see, the body doesn't just fall apart. It wants to heal. It wants to repair. And when you give it the right fuel, it does. That's why I always come back to one of my favorites, wild-caught salmon, or sardines. Not everyone loves fish. I get that. But let me tell you about Paul. Paul was 68, strong man but tired. He avoided red meat, ate turkey sandwiches, took his vitamins. But his energy was draining. He told me, "Doc, I feel like I'm running on fumes." So I asked him to try something strange. Add wild-caught salmon to his dinner 3 times a week. Add sardines packed in olive oil to lunch twice a week. He gave me a look like I'd asked him to eat seaweed, but he agreed. 10 days later, he came back in. "I don't know what's happening," he said, "but I slept through the night. And my wife, well, she noticed." He smiled. His blood work improved, triglycerides down, energy markers up. But what mattered most, he felt like himself again. You see, salmon and sardines aren't just fish. They're medicine, packed with omega-3s which reduce inflammation. They support blood vessel health, testosterone levels, and even mood. Sardines also contain CoQ10 for your heart, calcium for your bones, and they're easy to prepare and affordable. If you're living on a fixed income, hear this. You don't need expensive powders or shakes. You need real food that's been around longer than you have. Grill a piece of salmon with a slice of lemon. Mash up sardines with celery and olive oil for a quick lunch. Your heart, your arteries, your confidence, they'll thank you. But that's just the start, because the body runs best when its blood sugar is steady. And the way most men start their mornings, well, that's half the problem. Let's talk breakfast. Not just what tastes good, but what works. I once had a patient, Jerry, retired postal worker, up every morning by 6, coffee in one hand, white toast in the other. "It's what I've always done," he told me. And that was true for a lot of men I knew. Toast, jam, maybe a banana, and then the crash. Mid-morning fog, low energy, and by lunch reaching for something sweet just to make it through. What Jerry didn't realize was that his breakfast, simple as it seemed, was setting him up to fail. White bread spikes blood sugar fast, and when it crashes, so does your energy, your focus, And yes, your testosterone. So I offered him something different. Nothing fancy, just a bowl of steel-cut oats a few days a week, and on the others Ezekiel bread. He raised an eyebrow. Isn't that for hippies? I laughed and said, maybe, but it works. Steel-cut oats digest slowly. They give you steady energy. They're full of soluble fiber, which helps lower LDL cholesterol and keep your arteries clean. And they help stabilize blood sugar, which in turn protects your hormones. Ezekiel bread made from sprouted grains isn't just a healthier bread. It's food your body recognizes. More fiber, more protein, fewer crashes. Jerry gave it a go. Oatmeal with blueberries and a pinch of cinnamon 3 days a week. Ezekiel toast with almond butter the others. Within 2 weeks, he said, it's like the fog lifted Doc. He was clearer, more focused. He didn't crave sugar. And maybe most important, he didn't feel like he was battling himself anymore. That's the thing. Most men over 60 don't need complicated diets or expensive supplements. They need balance. And sometimes that starts with one good breakfast. But even good breakfasts can't make up for the damage done by too much sodium. That's why I always return to the same idea: real food, real salt, cooked by your own hands. I had another patient, Robert, who'd just lost his wife. He was doing his best, but dinner was often a microwave meal or a can of soup. He meant well. He picked the ones with low fat and heart-healthy labels, but every bite was pushing his blood pressure higher. Not because of what he added, but because of what was already hidden inside. So I gave him a challenge. One home-cooked dinner. No boxes, no cans, just lean protein vegetables and a grain like brown rice or quinoa. And instead of shaking table salt on top, just a pinch of pink Himalayan salt. He did it, and within days his fingers weren't swollen. His breath came easier, and for the first time in weeks, he told me I slept all night without waking up once. That wasn't magic. That was minerals. You see, pink salt isn't a miracle, but it contains tiny amounts of magnesium and potassium minerals your body needs to help blood vessels relax and function. It's not just about salt. It's about the kind of salt and the company it keeps. Processed sodium, the kind hiding in frozen dinners, overwhelms your system. But natural salt used gently can be part of the healing. And there's one more piece to this puzzle. One more food I ask almost every man over 60 to consider, and not just for their heart or hormones, but for their gut. Because gut health isn't just about digestion. It affects your mood, your immune system, even your testosterone. That brings us to the final food: organic Greek yogurt, or unsweetened almond or oat milk. Let me tell you about Mark, 70 years old, former engineer. He came in with digestion issues, low energy, and nights broken up by constant trips to the bathroom. He thought he was doing everything right: milk for calcium, fruit yogurts for gut health, cheese for protein. But when we looked closer, it all came back to one problem: conventional dairy. Most store-bought milk, cheese, and yogurts are made with milk from cows treated with synthetic hormones, and those hormones, particularly RBGH, linger. They don't just sit in your fridge, they sit in your body. And for a man whose testosterone is already naturally declining with age, that extra hormone load can tip the balance the wrong way. It can irritate the prostate, disrupt your sleep, cause bloating, and over time wear down your energy and edge. I asked Mark to make a switch: plain organic Greek yogurt, no fruit, no sugar, and almond or oat milk in place of regular milk. He was skeptical, but he tried. 2 weeks later, he walked into my office with a softness gone from his face. "I feel lighter," he said, and for the first time in months, he was sleeping through the night. That's not just digestion. That's recovery. That's repair. Greek yogurt, especially the organic kind, is full of probiotics. Those tiny bacteria feed your gut, support your immune system, and play a quiet role in hormone regulation. It's high in protein, low in sugar, and works with your body, not against it. Almond and oat milk aren't perfect, but they don't carry the synthetic hormones that traditional milk often does. And for many older men, that alone makes a world of difference. If you've been struggling with energy, poor sleep, or low drive, try this small change. Give it a week. Just observe. Because sometimes the road back to strength isn't paved with effort. It's cleared with awareness. I've sat across from hundreds of men over the years, men who felt lost, ashamed, even broken, and what I've learned is this: most of them weren't broken. They were just eating like the man they used to be, not the man they are now. When we finally make peace with that, when we stop reaching for comfort that harms us, and start choosing food that supports us, that's when the change begins. If this message touched you, perhaps share it quietly as it was shared with you. With a brother, a friend, a son. We all walk through this stage of life in our own way, but sometimes a single story, a single shift can bring a man back to life.